Have you ever wondered why, no matter how much a man gives in a relationship, it never seems to be enough? Why he can pour out his time, money, and energy, only to feel like he's still one step away from losing her? And why, even after doing everything right, so many men end up exhausted, resentful, and confused? What if I told you it's not an accident? What if the system was designed to work that way? Think about it. From the time we're young, men are told the same story. Win her over with effort. Show your love with flowers, dinners, and jewelry. Plan the surprises. Pay for everything. Never stop proving yourself. And if you ever slow down, if you ever hesitate, you risk losing the very relationship you worked so hard to keep. Here's the painful reality most men never admit out loud. Love doesn't feel like love anymore. It feels like a performance. It feels like an audition that never ends. And the cost, financial, emotional, even spiritual, keeps reaching. The truth is, what we call romance was never created for men's happiness. It was built on their insecurity. What looks like love is often just a transaction in disguise. In this video, I'm going to expose the mechanics of modern love, why men always seem to pay the highest price, and how to break free from the performance trap. Stay with me until the end, because once you see it, you'll never see relationships the same way again. To understand how we got here, we have to go back to the beginning. For most of human history, love was never about roses, poems, or candlelit dinners. It was about survival. A woman didn't choose a man because he wrote sweet words or because he planned a creative date. She chose him because he could protect her, feed her, and give her children a safer life. Strength, status, and resources spoke louder than any romantic gesture ever could. Look at the ancient world. The kings, warriors, and landowners never needed to convince women to want them. Their power did the talking. Their wealth was their love letter. Their armies were the promise of protection. In a time when winter could kill you and enemies could wipe out your village overnight, picking a man who could provide wasn't shallow. It was logical. Take King Solomon as an example. He didn't win women over with poems or long walks at sunset. He had 700 wives and 300 concubines. That wasn't romance. It was resource distribution. Each woman received a lifestyle no ordinary man could match. Palace walls, endless security, luxury, and the status of being chosen by the most powerful man alive. For the average man in that kingdom, what chance did he have? He had no armies, no palaces, no treasure rooms. He might have been a farmer, a craftsman, maybe a merchant with a small shop. How could he compete with the possibility of being queen? And this wasn't unique to Israel. The same pattern repeated across empires, kingdoms, and civilizations. Powerful men collected the most desirable women, while the majority of ordinary men were left with little to choose from. The sexual marketplace worked like economics: supply, demand, scarcity. Most men were priced out of the premium market completely, but then something new happened. Somewhere in medieval Europe, in the courts of southern France, a different idea appeared. If you couldn't compete with wealth, maybe you could compete with feelings. If you couldn't give her a castle, maybe you could give her poetry. If you couldn't provide an army, maybe you could offer undivided attention. Troubadours and knights created what we now call romance. But here's the twist. It wasn't created for women. It was created for men who couldn't win the old way. Romance was a rebrand. Instead of admitting that it was a second-place prize for men without power, the story flipped. Suddenly, the man with no resources was the noble hero. The wealthy, powerful man became the shallow villain who didn't understand true love. This wasn't just cultural evolution, it was marketing. Romance gave powerless men a new game with new rules. A game where their emotions became currency and their effort became the prize. And that's the system we inherited. A system built not on genuine connection, but on men trying to solve the same ancient problem. How do you make someone choose less when they could have more? That shift set the stage for the world we live in today. Modern romance is no longer about castles or kingdoms, but the rules haven't really changed. At its core, it still works like an economy. Men invest, women receive. The payment isn't always money. Sometimes it's time, attention, effort, or emotional labor. But the principle is the same. Men give, women decide. Watch how most relationships begin. He plans the first date. He chooses the restaurant. He pays the bill. He buys the flowers, the gifts, the little surprises. He remembers anniversaries. He's the one pouring in time and energy to create experiences. She receives these investments, and in exchange, she grants him continued access to her life. On the surface, it looks sweet. Underneath, it's a transaction. This system trains men to see relationships as never-ending tests. Their value is tied to their output. If they stop performing, if they forget an important date, stop planning surprises, or even suggest she pays sometimes, the message is clear. Their access is conditional. Women, meanwhile, are conditioned to measure men not by who they are, but by how much they're willing to give without asking for anything in return. The man who hesitates is labeled unromantic and quietly filtered out. What emerges is a marketplace of competition. Men battle each other to see who can invest the most for the same basic attention. And here's where it becomes manipulative. Romance creates artificial scarcity around things that should be natural: affection, companionship, intimacy. What should be free-flowing between two people becomes a premium product. Men feel they must earn. The woman becomes the gatekeeper, the one who controls access. The man becomes the supplicant, hoping his performance is enough. This doesn't happen by accident. It's taught through stories, movies, songs, and traditions. The dating script is simple. He pursues, she evaluates. He proves, she selects. He chases, she chooses. Attraction stops being about two people connecting and turns into an audition. Men perform, women judge. If he doesn't play the role, he's selfish or immature. If she plays her role too eagerly, she's desperate or easy. Both sides are stuck in a theater where authenticity doesn't matter. Only performance does. And the trap doesn't end there. Every romantic gesture raises the bar for the next one. One man buys a weekend getaway, and suddenly his friends feel pressured to match it. Engagement rings become status symbols. Social media turns private relationships into public scoreboards of who's winning in the game of romance. Men take on debt to prove love. Women are told they should expect it. But here's the kicker. None of this guarantees real connection. It only guarantees the cycle continues. Here's where the system becomes even more twisted. Culturally, women are told to say they want the romantic guy, the man who writes poetry, brings flowers, and pours his soul into every gesture. He's framed as the ideal partner, the one who gets it. And men believe this story. They spend years training themselves to be that guy, convinced that romance is the key to her heart. But when it comes time to make serious choices, most women don't pick the romantic man. They pick the man with stability, competence, and resources. The one who might not write love letters, but can offer security, status, and a future. The romantic man might win her attention for a while. She might enjoy his effort, admire his sensitivity, maybe even fall for the idea of him. But when the long-term decision arrives, marriage, children, lifestyle, her choice almost always leans toward the man who provides more than just feelings. This is the cruel irony. Men invest enormous amounts of time, energy, and money becoming more romantic. They believe effort alone will be rewarded with love. Yet they discover that romance rarely secures long-term commitment. The cultural promise doesn't match reality. Emotional investment is celebrated in theory, but often ignored in practice. Practical value still wins. Why? Because beneath all the cultural programming lies biology, and biology doesn't negotiate. Women are drawn, consciously or subconsciously, to competence, resources, and the ability to provide security. Men are drawn to youth, health, and beauty. Those instincts are thousands of years old. Romance tries to rewrite them, but instincts don't disappear just because culture says they should. This disconnect creates enormous frustration. A man can perform every romantic ritual, yet she may still lose attraction if he can't provide stability. A woman may appreciate his gestures intellectually, but emotionally, she craves the security that biology tells her is valuable. He resents the transaction. She doubts her own desires. Both end up confused and dissatisfied. Every romantic gesture also carries a hidden message. When a man kneels to propose, he signals submission. When he buys an expensive gift, he demonstrates his willingness to sacrifice resources for her approval. When he plans elaborate surprises, he communicates that her happiness outranks his own time and preferences. These actions don't create equality. They reinforce inequality. His role is to perform. Her role is to evaluate. And here's the painful truth. This can feel flattering for her at first. But over time, it leads to doubt. She starts wondering, does he love me for who I am, or for the role I play as the prize? Meanwhile, he feels his value is conditional. If he ever stops performing, he risks losing her. That pressure breeds anxiety, resentment, and exhaustion. Modern love doesn't look like a partnership. It looks like a contract written in invisible ink, where one performs and the other approves. Now let's talk about money, because the performance of romance isn't just emotional, it's financial. Entire industries survive by convincing men that love must be proven with a price tag. Jewelers push the idea that an engagement ring should cost 2 months of salary. Wedding planners normalize ceremonies that run higher than the average person's yearly income. Even a simple date night is marketed as a necessity for a healthy relationship. It's no accident. This is one of the most effective wealth transfer systems ever built. Men are taught that spending equals devotion. Women are told that receiving equals being valued. And industries quietly cash in on both. Jewelry companies, restaurants, travel agencies, florists, greeting card companies. Each one profits from male anxiety about being romantic enough. Look around on Valentine's Day. Restaurants are booked solid. Stores are filled with overpriced flowers and chocolates. Ads remind men that love isn't real unless it's wrapped in packaging. The pressure is relentless. If he spends big, he's praised as devoted. If he spends little, He risks being labeled cheap or unromantic. It's a lose-lose trap designed to keep him opening his wallet. And men comply. Many work longer hours, take on debt, or pick up extra jobs just to finance these rituals. They sacrifice financial stability for symbolic gestures that often do little to strengthen the relationship. Meanwhile, women are told these gestures are proof of love. So even if they don't care much about the gifts, they come to expect them. The cycle reinforces itself, again and again. The real tragedy: none of this guarantees a deeper bond. A $5,000 ring doesn't prevent divorce. A $300 dinner doesn't guarantee loyalty. A weekend getaway doesn't fix a relationship built on shaky ground. The money only maintains the illusion of effort. Romance has become theater. Men are actors paying for props. Women are positioned as the audience whose approval decides the success of the performance. Industries sell the tickets, rake in the profit, and never care whether the relationship actually works. It's a brutal equation. The more insecure men feel, the more they spend. The more they spend, the richer the industries become. And the richer the industries become, the more they double down on selling the myth that money equals love. At the end of the day, the system doesn't serve men. It doesn't even serve women. It serves business. The worst part of this system isn't just the money men lose. It's the intimacy both sides lose. When love is measured by performance, relationships stop being natural. They become staged productions, where every gesture has a hidden agenda and every moment carries expectation. Instead of being themselves, men and women become actors playing roles. Think about the boyfriend who feels pressure to plan the perfect anniversary. He doesn't do it because he genuinely wants to. He does it because forgetting or keeping it simple could be used against him. Think about the husband who buys gifts not out of excitement, but because he knows what will happen if he doesn't. These gestures might look romantic from the outside, but inside the relationship, they feel heavy. They feel obligatory. And women feel the weight too. She might accept the flowers or the expensive dinner, but not always because she wants them. Sometimes she accepts because rejecting them would make her seem ungrateful. Sometimes she smiles for the picture because social media expects her to. Over time, it becomes hard to tell the difference between genuine appreciation and polite performance. This destroys real intimacy. Spontaneity disappears. Authentic affection gets buried under a mountain of scripted behaviors. Instead of laughing naturally, instead of enjoying the small, messy, human moments, couples are locked into a cycle of rehearsed rituals. He performs to keep access. She responds to avoid conflict. Both go through the motions, but neither feels fully alive in the relationship. The cycle is exhausting. Men feel like they're on trial every day, constantly proving they deserve to keep their place. Women begin to doubt whether the affection is real or just another performance. Suspicion grows. Resentment builds. What should feel safe and connected starts to feel transactional, even competitive. At its core, this system trains both sides to value the wrong things. Men are told their worth comes from constant output. Women are told their worth comes from being desired. The result is shallow relationships where nobody feels truly seen for who they are. He isn't valued for his character, his competence, or his loyalty. She isn't valued for her contribution, her growth, or her individuality. Both become trapped in roles, provider and prize, instead of partners. And here's the tragedy. Many couples don't even realize why the spark feels fake. They think they're missing something, when in reality, they've been following a script that was never built for real intimacy. Perhaps the most damaging effect of this system is that it blinds people to their true desires. Men and women both end up chasing what they think they're supposed to want, not what actually fulfills them. Instead of building relationships on authenticity, they build them on assumptions. Men are told their role is to keep performing. They don't stop to ask, what do I actually want from love? Do I really enjoy buying endless gifts? Do I really want to measure my worth in dinners, trips, and surprises? Instead, they assume that's what women want. So they play the role without question. Women are told their role is to expect romance. They don't stop to ask, does this really make me happy? Do I actually want jewelry and elaborate dates, or do I just think I should? Culture has convinced them that romance equals love, so even when they feel something is missing, they hesitate to admit it. The result is a loop. He assumes she wants constant gestures because that's what he's been taught. She assumes she should appreciate them because that's what she's been told. Both play their parts, neither asking if the script actually matches their own desires. This is why so many couples feel strangely empty even when everything looks perfect. They hit all the milestones. They take the vacations. They exchange the gifts. They post the pictures. On the outside, it looks like success. On the inside, it feels hollow, because deep down, both know they're following someone else's formula instead of creating their own. And here's the heartbreaking part: authentic attraction, the kind that makes love effortless, often gets buried under these expectations. Real compatibility gets ignored in favor of romantic compatibility. A genuine partnership, where both contribute equally and naturally, is sacrificed to keep up appearances. This is why so many people wake up years into a relationship and feel like strangers. They never actually discovered what they wanted. They only performed what they thought they should want. And when the performance gets old, the relationship crumbles. But it doesn't have to be this way. Imagine if men stopped performing and started asking what truly matters to them. Imagine if women stopped waiting for rituals and started asking what actually makes them feel loved. Imagine if both sides stripped away the cultural script and built something real, messy, imperfect, but authentic. That shift would change everything. Here's the part most people never realize. This entire system is optional. You don't have to play by these rules. You don't have to spend thousands of dollars to prove love. You don't have to turn your relationship into an audition where every gesture is scored and judged. That pressure is not nature, it's programming. Men, this means your value is not measured by how much you perform. You don't need to compete in the endless marketplace of bigger gestures, fancier dates, and more expensive rings. Those things don't define you. What defines you is your character, your competence, and your authenticity. The more you chase approval through performance, the less you show your real self. And ironically, the less attractive you become. Women, this means asking hard questions too. How many of your expectations were shaped by movies, songs, or ads instead of your true desires? Do you actually want constant surprises, or have you been conditioned to believe you should? Do expensive symbols really make you feel loved, or do they just look good on social media? The truth is uncomfortable, but freeing. Love doesn't need a script. You don't need to keep playing roles that drain you. You don't need to prove anything with your wallet. You don't need to demand performances just because culture says you should. Once you step outside the system, you see it clearly. You see how industries profit from your insecurity. You see how cultural myths trap you in roles that don't serve you. You see how much energy is wasted chasing approval instead of building connection. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. The men who realize this stop competing in the romantic Olympics. They stop throwing money at industries that don't care about them. They stop measuring their worth in how much they can sacrifice. Instead, they start valuing themselves for who they are, not for what they can provide. And in doing so, they attract partners who value the same. That's the first step out of the trap, recognizing that the game is optional. That you don't have to perform just because everyone else is, that you can walk away from the theater of romance and start living something real. So what does love look like when you strip away the performance? When you remove the scripts, the props, the pressure? It looks surprisingly simple and far more powerful. Real relationships aren't built on elaborate rituals. They're built on mutual value. On two people choosing each other, not because of what they can perform, but because of who they really are. He brings his strength, his integrity, his vision. She brings her warmth, her energy, her creativity. Both contribute in ways that feel natural, not forced. In that kind of relationship, affection isn't conditional. It doesn't depend on the size of the gift or the price of the dinner. It flows freely because it's genuine. Appreciation isn't demanded, it's felt. Respect isn't something you buy. It's something you earn by showing up authentically, day after day. Imagine a partnership where the man doesn't live in fear of losing access if he ever slows down, where the woman doesn't doubt whether she's loved for herself or for the role she plays as the prize. Instead, both feel secure because they know the connection is real. That's the vision. Love without auditions. Commitment without contracts, attraction without transactions, a relationship that feels less like a job interview and more like a home. But here's the catch. You only get there when you stop performing, when you stop chasing approval, when you stop treating romance like a purchase and start treating it like a choice. Men have to let go of the belief that their value comes from sacrifice. Women have to let go of the idea that being loved means being spoiled. Both have to embrace the risk of being real. And yes, it feels risky. When you stop performing, you risk rejection. But rejection for who you really are is better than acceptance for a role you can't sustain. Because at least then, when someone chooses you, you'll know it's real. The truth about attraction is this: it doesn't need theater. It doesn't need debt or diamonds or public approval. It needs honesty. It needs compatibility. It needs two people willing to show up without masks. That's the kind of love that lasts. That's the kind of love that frees you. The choice is yours. Keep playing in the expensive, exhausting theater of modern romance, or walk away and build something authentic. The men who understand this don't just save their money. They save their energy, their dignity, and their future. And they discover that the connection they've been chasing all along was never for sale. Thank you for watching. If this message hit you, don't just scroll away. Subscribe, dive deeper into our content, and start building the mindset that puts you back in control. Drop a comment below. What's the biggest struggle you want us to break down next? Let's build a brotherhood of men who rise above confusion and reclaim their power. See you in the next video.